Good morning, guys. Good morning. Yeah, babe, that'd be great. Mm, if you'd like. I mean, that's on you, baby. I don't know. Good morning, guys. Morning, guys. Good morning. Hope you guys are having a great morning. What am I still long? I'm still some ARC, which I'm giving it down to about this $78 level. I'm still long BABA, and I just cut some about 3 minutes ago, but I'm still long. As long as we're holding the 50 simple moving average, which we are now not. So I did get out some. I bought it a couple of days ago on Wednesday. I still have some MAGS ETF, but it looks like I'll be taking my exit this morning. And I still have my Tesla. On the flip side, I have Cypher on the short side from 25 bucks. I have IONQ from yesterday into this push. I have Oklo from $146 right in here. And I have Rigetti from $37, I believe. Yeah, 37 bucks. So I've got more shorts than longs open at the moment. And there's a few other shorts that I'm definitely interested in. SoFi yesterday. Do you exit before your stop gets hit when you see bad price action? So for instance, my first long on SoFi yesterday, I exit the moment it takes out low of day. So I bought here when it took out prior day high. I exited right away, right as it took out low of day. On this price action here, when I thought it could have been bouncing maybe with the market, and then instantly the market started rejecting, I exited, just a few cents because we were getting so close to the close that, I knew we were going to go and break the 50-day. So you could just see it in the price action. You could see it in the tape. You knew how heavy things were. So saw that one coming a mile away. Would I have cut Marvell yesterday? I wouldn't have bought Marvell to begin with. I think this is a lagging semiconductor for now. But yes, depending on where I bought it, probably would have cut it. Depending where you bought it. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you where you bought it, so I don't know. Like if you told me you somehow nailed the low on Marvell, then maybe I'd still be holding. But my thoughts on AMD, it's acting like a lot of the rest of the market right now. It's getting sold off. Right? It's not that I hate AMD. It's just there's a lot of airspace between where we're trading and the 50 simple moving average, and it's being sold off. It just is what it is. A lot of stocks, regardless of how awesome they've been lately. There's just bad price action out there. Well, Baidu is also acting a little bit like Baba this morning. Gap down. I mean, I think it's fine, but a gap down. Looks like you've got somewhat of a pivot here to work with. But again, gap down. And yeah, Baba also gapping down. TMDX, not really tons to do with it at the moment. Morning. Morning, sir. Do I trade 2x short ETFs? No, not really. I could, but no, I covered part of my Oklo already. I covered it on this push at 126 bucks a few days ago. So I shorted it on the 29th. I covered some on the 3rd into this push. I thought maybe we're going to build a higher low off the 50 and push, and I didn't want to deal with that. So I covered some off into here. And then, now that we're way down here, sub 100, it's doing exactly what I thought. And I think that it's probably going to go in gap fill. So like 95 bucks. If we get down to 95, it's likely I cover like another, half of what I have left. And then I just let the rest work for what I think could be an eventual move down to, 80 and maybe even 60. Yeah, there are definitely some stocks on the watch list, potentially on the short side. We'll be keeping, this one gapped down a little bit too much, but NBIS potentially, I'll be watching IONQ, which I took some yesterday. I actually loved the strength it was showing yesterday, while like QBTS and Rigetti and QUBT were showing some strength. And I took some against the 5-day, but I was using 59 as a stop because that was the 10-day, and it came right into the 10-day, and I almost shorted some more, but I just kind of left it alone. But any pops, any strength, I'll be looking to short Rigetti as well. Scott, to be completely honest with you, that's kind of odd hearing that from you, because you've been telling me, oh, I think things are going to melt, and when they go down, they're going to explode, and all this other, what would seem like you would love the short side. Honestly, with how much you talk about not trusting things on the long side. You would think. It's a V shape. That's exactly why you hear me saying I want to short some into strength, not into weakness. I don't know. It's funny because we heard a lot in October how it's the worst month of the year, and it ended up being a green month. And then once we got through October, everybody's like, phew, we just got through the hardest part of the year, which is typically down. Now we're expecting things to go up in November, which I found comical because now everything is going down. And I've been talking about it, and I've even tweeted about it. My watch lists suck, right? And more importantly than my watch lists, I'm not gaining traction on new longs. So if I'm listening to that feedback in my portfolio, and I am taking more shorts. And not only am I taking more shorts, I'm being rewarded more on the short side. I've had awesome shorts in a name like UAMY from 18 bucks. I've had an awesome short in a name like Nugget from 185. I've had an awesome short in Rigetti the first time from 55. I've had awesome shorts in, I tried to be short MSTR right against the 200. Obviously, it stopped me out, but this was another great short. And look at this absolutely massive fade all the way to 225. This is just getting disgusting. So yeah, shorts have been working, right? Shorts have really been working. Oklo, which didn't take much effort to get short, I shorted it on 1029. Not a whole lot of effort to catch a $50 fade, basically. They're just not making it all that difficult. Cypher, I shorted this thing against 11.3's high. It gave me a little bit of, made me sweat just a little bit when it almost stopped me out a handful of times. But ultimately, the very next day yesterday, it just imploded. So the short side is working, and I'm listening to that side of the market. So, Aaron, I wish, man, the next one, I was going to be a speaker in Miami, but that's the same weekend as my wedding. So, yeah, I would have been down in Miami to be a speaker there. So, unfortunately, I will not be there. Would love to be there, but wedding comes first, and then I'll see you guys at the next one. That's why I talk about shorting into strength, right? Again, and what I mean by shorting into strength is, right, you see like how I shorted MSTR into here. We know it's lagging, and the moment it shows some strength and hits the declining 200 moving average, I'm shorting that. Well, what ends up happening? A nice fade, right? If you wait for this little bit of strength and then you wait for it to break the 200 again, you're basically shorting into strength and you're shorting the breakdown. And then what happens? The problem is that people now look at this and now they hate MSTR versus hating it up here, right? Now they're like, oh my God, MSTR sucks. It's going to go lower. And then all that happens is that V-shape recovers right back up to 300 and people get their ass kicked. So they tend to do things at the wrong time. That's most of people's issue. And then the other issue is that people don't have enough patience once they're in a winner to make up for a lot of their little losses. Kulmagi says, if you haven't made $1 million trading, don't worry about learning to short. Do I agree? I agree in a sense, but I don't in the other, right? Because if you're in a really, really crummy market, making money shorting is much easier, right? And if you're in a really, really great market, making money longing is much easier. And I've talked about this before. The best time to get long is after the market has had a correction. The best time to get short is after the market has had a really big move up. What do you want to long after the market's had a correction? The names that have been showing the best relative strength. What do you want to short when the stock market, has had a big move up? The names that have been showing relative weakness. Now, with the shorting part, I definitely have noticed the Costcos and the MMYTs and the SFMs and the MSTRs, but I also go for some of the big opportunities, like what I think to be, a UAMY or even a Rigetti when they get a little bit stretched to the upside. So, but yeah, I for the most part, I do agree with him, but I do think there's validity to at least learning the other side of the market. Part of the reason that I do think that learning the other side of the market is really important, because then you trade the market with no bias. Like if you're a bull only, you have a bias towards the market. You only know how to make money when the market's going up. If you trade both sides of the market, you keep no bias because it's just a setup. It's just about managing risk. It's just about your entry tactic. It's just about your patience. It has nothing to do with, I only know how to make money on the long side. I'm just bullish no matter what. I know people like that on X, and honestly, they've been just getting their asses handed to them for the last couple of weeks because they're just bullish. So, it just is what it is. No, I'm not preparing any names to buy because there really aren't any. Yes, I've got names on my watch list already, but I just don't see I just don't see enough worth doing right now into the weekend. Like, what kind of a washout are we just supposed to have, right? Like, I am thinking that it would be much healthier if the market went lower. I'm also thinking that I'm making tons of money on the short side right now and I'm getting stopped out of longs. I'm listening to that feedback and I'm not trying to be the first back in the pool. I don't need to be. Ricky Bobby, hell yeah. Shake and bake, baby. Shake and bake. Nice to have you there, sir. Nor shorting Mag 7. I'll tell you what, I actually thought NVIDIA was pretty interesting on 11.3 as a potential short right in here. When we started to break back down, I thought this like $111, $110 level was interesting against, $211, $210 was interesting against $212. So, yeah, you had this kind of a nasty down day on a pickup in volume, and then you tried to go retest that level, and then you started to fail. I thought that this was actually a pretty interesting short. So yeah, I'm comfortable shorting the Mag 7 too. Like, I also don't think Meta looks all that great. I could see this thing going a whole heck of a lot lower based on price action. So yeah, you can short whatever, dude. As long as you can short whatever, as long as you know where you leave when you're wrong. Santa rally is still possible. It's going to take 3-4 weeks for things to actually look clean enough for there to be a substantial Santa Claus rally. Otherwise, it's just going to be choppy throughout. Yeah, STNG looks pretty interesting, and it's not just STNG, it's also FRO. You'll notice how similar this looks. You'll also notice how similar INSW looks, and you'll also notice how similar TNK looks. These things are identical. So, I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that that's where money's going. Your job then becomes, how the hell do I get myself in these things? Yes, I do take some action pre-market when stop losses are hit, but sometimes liquidity is an issue. So, for instance, I just took some off the table on BABA here, right? Because I got a third of my position sold because it broke below my stop level. And so, taking some off the table is all I could do. I couldn't close the whole thing. I'm kind of hopeful for a bit of a push in the morning, and then I'll probably just exit the rest of it. So, yeah, we'll see. XOM, interesting. Yeah, a bit of a laggard in terms of price. There are a few others that I think are acting a bit better. So DK is one of them, right? I mean, this thing, earnings now gapping up. VLO acting a little bit better, already kind of in an uptrend. PARR, acting a bit better. So there are others. No, am I still in Dell? No, I cut Dell days ago. I cut Dell, and I'd be red on this thing, dude. I don't let that happen. I cut Dell right in here, right in this little consolidation. So before SMCI had earnings too. So I kind of got lucky that I exited it. But at this point, it was closing below the 20 simple moving average. So that was my cue to leave. Yeah, I'll do something for Black Friday. And I'll do something for Black Friday probably. But yeah, no Dell for me. Thoughts on shorting SNDK? I mean, this has been one of the stronger names out there, but obviously getting rejected on earnings. If you want to short SNDK, I also suggest you keep your eye on MU. You could see how similar this is acting in pre-market. And then WDC is another one that you should probably keep your eye on, and you should see how that's also fading in after hours, or pre-market. So I would just keep your eyes on those. And, that'll kind of help you make your decision if you actually want to short SNDK. What longs am I still in? Yeah, I talked about this just a moment ago, but I still have some ARC, and I'm using that $78 level. I really should have cut it yesterday, but I've been in it for 5 months. And, my buddy, People Wish, convinced me to just try to hold it maybe against this upper boundary, which I think is perfectly fine. Against this level of resistance. We'll see if that ends up holding 78. I have BABA, which I will very likely be closing right at the open, unless, barring some, pop in pre-market. I still have the MAGS ETF, which is effectively a flat trade. I did take some off into strength, but now, it's just kind of retrace the move. And I still have Tesla from within this base. And as long as we just kind of continue to chop here above the 50, I will be holding that for now. So, and then on the flip side, I have more shorts open. Failed breakdowns on something like, or failed breakouts on something like PL to go short. Yeah. I mean, this could be a failed breakout. I mean, who knows? Maybe a break of $12 in the 50 simple moving average could be interesting. Thoughts on shorting U and IWM? I don't know that I would short U personally. Yeah, I don't know that I'd short IWM either. I would want to short things with a bit more momentum. Where did I study to learn shorting? Well, if you want to go like more smaller time frame, like more for day trading tactics, Nate from IU, which I learned a ton from Nate. But I also learned swing shorting from Gil Morales, and he used to manage a book for Bill O'Neill. Yeah, I'm watching stocks that have gapped up on earnings like Datadog, but I'm not trading them at the moment. Right? Datadog, something like HCC, FSLY, Lemonade. I'll be watching everything that gapped up on earnings. Well, it depends. Pops like IONQ, I'll be watching any sort of strength in IONQ. Maybe something into 56 or 50, even $57. Could be interesting on the short side. I think stocks that are running into declining moving averages look pretty interesting. I think maybe even something like NBIS losing the 50 simple moving average looks pretty interesting. Any kind of morning strength I'll be watching. That's just kind of where my head's at. I think NBIS could play out a little bit like CoreWeave, where CoreWeave and NBIS bounced on October 22nd, and they both bounced. If you look at CoreWeave, that actually took out that October 22nd low already. And my gut says that CoreWeave eventually does the same thing. So, no, I'll be holding Tesla so long as we're above the 50. Thoughts on Zim, the shipper? It's a laggard. There's no reason for you to be looking at this. It's below a declining 200. Maybe there's a day where this thing gets back above the 200 and starts to actually build out. But for now, leave it alone. At least that's my thinking. EME for a short? Yeah, could be. Yeah, could be. This looks like a bit of a bear flag. I was shorting a bunch of setups like this earlier in the year where you would get a gap down, you get a bear flag, right? NOW is a pretty good example, right? You get this gap down, then you get a bear flag, just like EME. A little bit different, right? Because no two setups are identical, but same kind of thing, right? Get the gap down, you get a bear flag. So what do I think of BMNR scam? I think you answered the question for me. As long as Tesla's above the 50 simple moving average, I'm hanging out. My thoughts on Ethereum? My thoughts on Ethereum are that price action sucks. And if you listened to Tom Lee months ago when I was calling it a crowded long, well, then you got your ass kicked. That's my thoughts. So I hope anybody who was here at least was listening to me, because it definitely did not work out. It was a spectacular fail. And, maybe it goes higher in time and I'll change my opinion, but it needs to actually set up to go higher, right? I mean, right now it's lost all momentum. So my thoughts on Ethereum are that price action sucks. Still pool. You could learn it directly from Gil Morales. I also talk about it a lot in the Discord. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, my hope would be, I don't know about a convention. There's not that many of us. But yeah, maybe like a get together in the Midwest somewhere, or I'll have to travel and do it a couple of spots. So Chicago maybe. Thoughts on holding, or thoughts on NEGG holding relative strength?
On AZN, statistically consistent results for hypersignal syndrome.
Why don't I short MU? Um, MU's not a laggard. MU's been a leader. Yeah, it might be possible. Yeah, MBIS might be a short. I would be looking at any potential strength that comes into the market. I'll be looking for things to get heavy after the fact. GLD is still interesting to me, but GLD's got to get going. Got GLD right here. Yeah, we'll see what GLD chooses to do. I don't think it's. I think we're still just kind of stuck in a little range here. Back above 370 could be interesting. You could look it up on bar chart. Yeah, COT data. My thoughts on LRCX, I like the relative strength the other day, but this is not really a clean setup. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was like in 2024 that Tom Lee said up here somewhere that the Russell would go up 40% on the year or 50%, as if like 50% is just like some kind of normal move for a stock market. I mean, just, he lives in La La Land, dude. And people, of course, listen to him because I don't know if you ever known this, but like, what sells? Either extreme fear or extreme greed. And, like being like level headed or being comfortable on both sides or being very vanilla and it just is what it is. And you could make money on both sides of the market. And I don't really care what side the market's going to go on. And that doesn't sell. That's not sexy. It's not even appealing. But if I were like a Super Bowl and then I was right, even just one time for a brief moment, you could pound the table and say, see, I told you so. And then that sells. Or if I'm super bearish all the time and I was right, finally, at some point, oh my God, I told you guys this was going to happen, right? That sells, right? Like fear sells, greed sells. But like, just being level headed. But what happens is sometimes when you're so far out on the extremes, like the perma bears you see on X or the perma bulls, they get their asses kicked if they're actually perma bullish all the time. And then if you're perma bearish all the time, you also get your ass kicked, right? It's like being somewhere in the middle actually is what pays, in my opinion, right? But, just is what it is. Where's money rotating to? I think the XLV is pretty interesting. I think some of the energy stocks look pretty interesting. AVGO is another semi name. I just don't see a setup here worth trading. Right? I just don't see anything in AVGO worth trading while the NASDAQ is coming under some pressure. Hell no. Do I factor prediction markets odds into my trading? No. That doesn't move the needle on my account. If you think I'm being completely honest here. If you think I give a shit about what people in the poly market are doing for me to make money, you don't know me well enough, brother. No, I don't care about poly market or any of the other betting prediction markets, dude. If you're relying on that to make money in your career, it's going to be a long career. Yeah, Datadog, FSLY. Problem is I'm not really trading them right now because they just could turn out a little bit like lemonade, where they push up on earnings, next day they do nothing, and that's expected in a market that's going down. And we probably are not going to get a whole lot today going into the weekend. So if that's the case, I think it's just best to be patient, right? Best to be patient. Yeah, I saw a run on earnings. What happened there? Did they gap down or gap up? Yeah, they gap down. I mean, not the best. I don't know that I want to short Solars at the moment. They've been actually one of the stronger groups in the market. Outside of Mark and Gil, who else have you learned from who had the biggest impact? Christian Koulamagi was big. Dan Zanger was really big. Pat Walker was really big. Stan Weinstein was really big. Yeah, I've had a lot of influences that have helped me along the way, but nothing really beats 12-hour days. I know some people don't want to hear that, but that's the reality, right? That's sometimes what I spend, doing my job, from when I wake up in the morning to talking to you guys, to spending all day, looking at markets, to spending the evenings looking at markets, to prepping at night before the market opens, and then doing it again the next day for 5.5 straight years. So nothing really beats, dedication. And yeah, of course, studying a Bill O'Neill, right? And reading his books, and studying a Mark Minervini and reading his books, and studying Stan Weinstein and reading his books, and watching all of Christian's YouTubes and kind of watching what he trades and how he trades them, right? Like, that's very, very helpful, but nothing beats you sitting down at your desk, scanning, making sense of where money's going, where money's leaving, how to get in, how much to get in for, how to manage your risk, how to trim some into strength, how to hold the rest. Like, you have to do those things yourself. And that ends up being the biggest impact. I don't have a 612 reclaim strategy. It's 620, and I use extended hours as well. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Yes, it's going to be a few days. What do I think of strength in CLS? I think this is a late stage base, right? I look at this, and this is a late stage base. This doesn't, I don't think this goes higher from here. No, I don't use TOS for trading. I got kicked off of TOS years ago. So just for charting. All of them. I mean, Peter Schiff's been right on gold for the last, year and a half. Yeah, SoFi failed instantly on me, but that's okay, because then you just get out right away. And then you just get out right away, and you don't sit there and just watch it fade and fade and fade and fade on you. I mean, you just get out right away, and you don't deal with the headache after the fact. Oh, yeah, AAOI got crushed the other day, too. Yeah, and yesterday on earnings. Oof, all the way down to the 200. Yeah, kind of nasty. Yeah, I don't know that that I would short RUN, maybe, because it was on earnings, but who knows? Not right now. There are others. I like ISRG. It's in the XLV ETF. Yeah, I think this thing looks pretty damn good, if you ask me. Yeah, delayed EP setups, high volume close setups, fish hook setups. I think those are better. Yeah, I'll repeat it again. I'm long ARK. I'm long BABA. And ARK, it's very likely that, I'm out of it the rest of it today. I'm long BABA. Again, another one that I probably closed today. I'm long Tesla, and I'm long the MAGS ETF, which I'll probably close as well today. I'm short Cypher. I'm short from 25. I'm short IONQ from yesterday in this push. I'm short Oklo from 146 up here. And I'm short Rigetti. There's no real thoughts on gold and silver just yet. Gold's got to actually start pushing. And I don't know that buying a commodity going into the weekend is the right idea. Right? If this thing is going to hold the 50 and eventually continue higher, I think that this consolidation is very interesting. But it kind of needs to get going first, right? Needs to get going above this consolidation. No, I don't subscribe to anybody anymore. I used to, but no, not anymore. SR, nice to see you, brother. We'll see you back in the room in about 20 minutes. EOSE, this one was looking pretty good. I guess it still is. Yeah, who knows? Does it eventually take out a prior day high? Maybe. But for now, we're gapping down overnight. I don't know. I remember there was a moment there when you was showing some relative strength in here too, while all the other rare earths were kind of breaking down. This one was showing some relative strength too. And that while all the rare earths were just getting smoked at that point, on October 30th. And then all of a sudden, under pressure. I use TOS for scanning. Yeah, I use TOS. I use FinViz. I use DeepView. No, did I short Reddit? No, but Reddit is a good example of shorting into a declining moving average. Here you go. Right, 223. And now you're getting, this extra beautiful gap down, 176. That's just, ain't that beautiful. Apple looks good. Yeah, because it feels like that's where institutions are hiding at the moment. But there are no hiding spots if the market keeps coming down. I look for, so if I'm looking to short, so how do you decide where to enter a trade that has gap down in pre-market, for example, open? Okay, so for instance, I don't buy open. I don't go long open, that's for sure, because there is no setup to long it. There's no real momentum there. Unless, of course, you're looking at what's called an undercut and rally setup, in which case you'd want to kind of see it go back through 1022's low. So 623, a reclaim of that level. Okay, fine. But if you're looking to short, then you're looking for strength, and then you're looking for it to start to roll over. So that's kind of the thinking there. There are times I use limit orders. Yeah. There are times I use limit orders. Not always. Sometimes market orders will do just fine. DPRO. This thing looks disgusting. Honestly. It's probably a great short. I don't know. You got to make your own decisions too, but it does look like a pretty good short to me. Pops into declining moving averages are probably the best way to go. ASML looks really good here. Yeah, I think one of the things to just make sure that you're considering is, what is the market doing at the time you're going to buy something? If the market's going down and other semiconductors are acting weak, ASML will also get hit, period. Right? And it looks like, from the looks of it, I don't know enough to say, but it looks like the market's trying to at least go visit the 50-day, which means we got a little bit lower to go at minimum. I've never tried TC2000. I know people who use it. It looks like a great platform and program, honestly. What do I think of Circle? You're a little late on the short side. And this is part of the problem, too. Tibor, and this is nothing against you, brother. You're this short, like this is what you want to make, right? So like when I hear you say this, what do I think about Circle? Maybe a short. I would never short this in a million years. I want to catch 9 days down in a row. Do you really want to show up on day number 10 as a potential red day in a row? Like you really want to show, and then what? Like you're just expecting this to then just go straight down to 60 or something? You see what I'm saying? And like again, I'm not coming at you when I'm saying this. I'm just trying to teach you. You don't show up on day number 10 or 9 in a row where it just goes down in a straight line and down 30%. And okay, yeah, now I'm going to show up for Circle as a short. Like, huh? How do you limit risk? How do you know this thing doesn't just bounce to 125, goes up 25%, you get your head ripped off, and then the short against the declining 20 or the declining 50 is not a much better entry, safer, right? Like you've missed it. You've missed the trade, not to mention that this is gapping down now another $2, right? So you've missed the trade entirely. That's not to say you can't get another short, but that's like this, right? I short MSTR into this 200. It fades. Now all of a sudden, here you come and you're like, oh, MSTR short below 300. And then they rip your head off for 5-6 days in a row in the other direction, right? So you can't do that. You want to short, you got to short some into declining moving averages at the very least. Don't show up on day number 8 and 9 to be the guy who's liquidity for people who want to cover their short. So just food for thought, brother. Food for thought. I mean, you could do whatever you want, and I hope it would work for you no matter what, but I don't want you to get your ass kicked. You have a 112 short on Roblox? Yeah, that's fine. I thought it was better on the day it gapped down on earnings, like 120 something, but I mean, you're in there, you're up 12 points, and it's working. I mean, looks pretty damn good to me. Yes, Oz. I do. I do announce all the stocks that I'm trading right as soon as I'm trading them or even before I'm going to trade them. So I'm also on live stream, going over all the names that I'm watching and where I'm watching them and what my plan is and when I exit and everything. So yeah, Ron, you missed nothing these last few days. You absolutely missed nothing, sir. Meta continuing lower. Yeah, Meta can do 20 red days in a row, same as when it went up 20 days in a row. When did this happen? It was in January, right? Yeah. This. No, it really depends what the market's looking like. I mean, maybe, but I don't think that it's a great setup at the moment. I don't think it's a great setup. And Palantir could very well be a late stage base. I talked about this in last night's watch list video. It could very well be a late stage base. If you guys have studied history and looked at how much past earnings winners can move, right? 6 to 8 quarters is what's typical, right? 6 to 18 to 24 months, right? This whole thing that's been going on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I think that started even before. Yeah, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 quarters. Over 30 months. Over 30 months, almost 3 years, this thing has been in an uptrend. So, typically when the move ends, it could be a violent fade. I mean, don't be utterly surprised if this thing could potentially lose 50% off these highs. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying it absolutely can.
Remember his comments out by the Wall Street Journal says the Senate considers revised plan to end government shutdown. That's being circulated on
Do I have a strat for not buying a dip, but buying a recovery from a dip? Yes. Yeah, I do. I don't just blindly buy a dip, right? I buy a dip, but with already a risk level having been established. I never just blindly buy a stock as it's going down. I buy it as it's turning back up after it's gone down. That doesn't mean it can't go down more, but I've got a level where I've got established risk already, where I know exactly based on how much I'm buying, exactly how much I'm losing. And in this environment, I'm buying less, right? I'm not buying more. I'm not getting more aggressive. I'm wrong a lot, right? I'm already wrong 60% plus of the time. So, but it's when I get into one winner that it really makes up for 10 losses all the time, right? That's the idea. 50-80 rule. Gabo, you studied it, my man. You know. Don't got to tell you. Max. Terrible. Yeah, I mean, I think Cypher can go, at least back to this 50 day. So um, I've got quite a few shares. I have quite a few shares of Cypher myself. I almost have 50,000 shares of Cypher, so from $25. So if they just want to fade it all the way back down to $15, I'd be very grateful. RR 350? Yeah, except Jack already made his couple of $1,000,000, so I don't think Jack cares. And good for him. He was right. What do I think about markets in general? I think what markets are doing right now is completely healthy. I think people, give too much importance into what they're doing in the short term. Long term, they're in an uptrend. Short term, there are really no buyable clean setups. That's just is what it is. There are no stocks that are set up currently that carry enough weight to the general market, the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ that could actually carry things higher, right? The Palantir doesn't look set up to go higher. NVIDIA doesn't look set up to go higher. Microsoft does not look set up to go higher. Google has already been kind of holding up what it can. Meta looks like complete shit. Netflix looks pretty rough below the 200. Apple's like hanging on by a thread, trying to support the world on its shoulder. I mean, the reality is here, crypto and speculative money's flying out the door. Speculative money's leaving Ethereum and Bitcoin. Speculative money is leaving the rare earth stocks. Speculative money is leaving the nuclear stocks. Speculative money is leaving the quantum stocks. Like there is just not enough out there to warrant getting too aggressive out here. And that's okay, right? You need a correction. And the best thing that could possibly happen is a 8, 9, 10, 12% correction. And then the market bottoms. It floats up 2 days in a row. On that next day, it gives you a follow-through day. Every night you come in and you do your homework. You see a couple nice buyable setups the day before you get a follow-through day. Then you're getting that follow-through day and your stocks are breaking out. You go ahead and you try a piece that works. You try another, you try another, you try another. And all of a sudden, you're right back to being invested on the long side. But in the meantime, the market's been gifting you shorts. So shorting is what I'm doing. And so I don't personally care what the market's doing, going up, going down, going left, I just don't care. The reality is that there's money to be made right now. And really all the time, you just got to know where to look, right? And you got to align yourself with what is actually happening, and what you're actually, and you have to listen to your portfolio. I tried Dell. It didn't work for long. I tried Mags. It didn't work for long. I tried, I'm getting stopped out of ARC. That worked for 5 months, but now the, chickens have come home to roost, as they'd say. I've tried Rocket Lab. That lasted for great, but not that long, right? And it's like, on the flip side, not only am I getting stopped out of longs, my shorts are working. So all I'm doing is listening to the feedback in my portfolio, and I naturally gravitate to the side of the market which is easiest to trade. And I'm going for shorts because they are the easiest to trade in the moment. So that's kind of my thinking. Could iron be shorted today? Yeah, in pops. Man, I missed iron too. I know they had earnings, but I didn't think they'd be all that great. I thought this was shortable against 74.15, and boy, was it ever. Right through that 74.15 yesterday, absolute money. Reject 74.15, and then there you go, down $10. So into strength, maybe. What was my thesis for shorting Cypher? It was the same reason I just talked about iron. Shorting into that left side peak, right? So Cypher gave an exhaustion kind of a candle on 11.3, and you could see this. It tried to break out. It basically failed on earnings, big pickup in volume, and then all I did on 11.5 was short against that level. So what did I do? Price starts ripping right up into this level, right? Just literally ripping right into this level. And I'm like, okay, all right, sounds good. If we start to fail 25.11, I'm going to short. And that's exactly what I did. And then my stop was literally 50 cents above my average. And then what happened, right? Tried to take out that high, could not. Tried to take out that high, could not. And then the next day just faded, right? So a very easy thesis. Thinking that these names are due for a pullback because a lot of the rest of the market, like when you looked at your Oklos and your IONQs and your rare earth stocks, those were all getting smoked. And this is in that same momentum basket. For anybody who thinks like Cypher or iron are in like this special category, they're momentum trades, just like Oklo was a momentum trade, just like IONQ was a momentum trade, just like MP and UAMY were momentum trades. When momentum leaves the market, it's not long until Cypher gets taken down with it. Anyway, love you guys. Hopefully you guys all have a super awesome weekend. I got to get ready for stream. Market's about to open in a couple minutes. Hopefully you guys all have a super safe weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Much love. Thanks for the questions. I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Later.